sa Zeus mo asking Dr. James Viernes and todos niyo may guests in the program and all those who are watching this program and the two panelists that will follow right after me. Uh, this is my fourth appearance on the program of Kusinan and in all the four programs, I was the first speaker. And being the first speaker, my role is to define, to focus on the subject that is to be discussed within each feature. So today's feature is commemorating. Commemorating the World War II events and the experiences of our scientists who went through that experience, which are very minimal today. And how do we go from 1944, the end of World War II, to today, the year 2020? And what are these connections? There is a Chamorro proverb, and it states, "Tungupad gonno ifinapos mo, e kunguk maulit ifino imanay namo. Panatagwitan niya ani, pago ipa gomo, agupa tiagupamo." In English, it translates as, "Know my child, your past. Listen well to the words of your elders. Panatagwitan ya animo. Your life is a constant wind of change. Pagupa gomo, yesterday's your day. Lo agupa tiagupamo, but you do not know what holds for the future." Those of us just months ago don't realize or did not realize that the pandemic of the coronavirus would reach Guam and the effects that it would bring to Guam. But the impacts are multiple. Of course, we all know the economics of it, but our focus here is the emotional, psychological impacts that we deal with every day as we face the pandemic. Well, connections. Taiman, how? And how can we learn from the experience of Imanay Nata, our elders, the like, in how we accept and how we deal and how we navigate our way through this pandemic. Because in our history as Chamorros, it is nothing new. We have faced so many in our history, from the war, World War II, from epidemics that nearly wiped out our indigenous population in the early 16th century, where our population from over 50,000, even more than that, narrowed down in some records down to 1,800 or 3,000 at most. And through that episode, only Luta, Rota, and Guam were continually inhabited because the severe population that occurred. But there were, again, other epidemics that occurred in our history. And to those that I talked to among the Manainas, the most recent one, or the recent one that they remember, these were Manainas that were born in the 1880s, that generation, was the 1856 epidemic, the smallpox epidemic, that nearly wiped out 2/3 of the population of Guam alone. It didn't reach the Northern Marianas. And so what happens when there is a severe depopulation of a society, like the early or the first epidemic in the 16th century? You're talking about not only the psychological, but all the knowledge, all the traditions that have been the icon of Chamorro culture lost because of the generation that succumbed to the epidemic. Our ancient voyaging system demised through the first epidemic that we had here in the Marianas, basically. uh, the tradition that Rita uh, made reference to, Uritao, in Chamorro, it's really Hulitao. And Hulitao comes from the word tau, tau, tau. And in this case, Hulitao is a men's house. And it is a traditional place of learning skills among the male population in tradition in from early childhood, basically adolescence into manhood. That's what Guma Hulitao was all about. But then there was a controversy over that particular tradition among the early missionaries that they actually did away with the Guma Hulitao. But then how do we connect, going back to the folks of this session, to World War II and today's generation? Well, I certainly do, because I am an immediate post-war generation Chamorro. I was born in 1951. So the accounts I heard were first-hand information. First within my family, second among the associates of my family, the greater extended family system, and third, the general population of scientists in the Chamorro culture that related to me, the events of World War II. And when I look at them, as they are telling me the story, although they try to present to me a positive recollection in all the conversations that I could recall, and not one of them, and I can't remember of one that was not in that reflection of mine. I can see that deep, unforgettable experience that they all went through. So I am trying to figure out, including my parents and my immediate aunts and uncles. So I was saying to myself, then what made it possible for them to move from that horrific experience of World War II to the aftermath of World War II? And there's no question. It was the strong Chamorro culture that they had, the traditions that they had, the beliefs that they had, that forged them on to build upon the experience that they went through, like their scientists before them in other situations. So the younger generation of Chamorros today can really learn and connect. And the two things that really come to my mind in the learning process here, and I discussed in the last session, first is the concept of Atman. Atman, which means enduring in this context. Mesngan. Mesngan. And Mesngan means enduring. And the proverb goes, Mesngan etu Atman. Atman. Meaning, those that endure whatever they face will prevail. The other Chamorro valued proverb that was really very much a part of their psychology was panatagwid niya ani, and I use this all the time in my reflection on Chamorro culture. And panatagwidan simply means that the winds of change in all history of all mankind is not stable. And so our generation of elders, the ones that are still living, lived through this experience of World War II. I didn't live that experience, but I learned of it. And it was very important to me to do so because it also navigated for me the way I deal with situations that come my way that I don't think I could actually handle. But then I always reflect back, what are you talking about? Malia, your parents went through World War II and you can't deal with the situation? You know, so those type of things, it's just a thought. But those two proverbs, and then the other proverb that really came to mind as this session was going from the first series, second, third, was the concept of utas. Utas is a very strong Chamorro word. You can't even define it in English because it has all these multiple implications. But utas simply means do not, in English, in simple English, do not be wasteful. Never be wasteful sa tuntungo, because you never know na agupa that tomorrow you may need what you're throwing away today. You may need that tomorrow. It's not utas. Everything that you have learned from the culture. And so seeing all these different concepts, the other thing that really comes to my mind is the word ginavli'i, and I mentioned that in an earlier, what do you call that, episode. And look at this particular slide, the Chamorros. This is in Pico, when they were transferred from the, they say concentration camp. I, as an oral historian, would probably say sanctuary camp, because there is this controversy of if the Chamorros weren't taken out of Sumay or Hagåtña, what would have happened on the day of the invasion? Think about that. If the Japanese did not remove them, we as Chamorros have to consider that alternative thought also. That when the Japanese officials went and knocked on the door and said, "Suli apasinin sili, take what you can, Sanihi, Tafanyua, and let us remove ourselves from this place," because they knew what was going to happen. The Japanese did. The Chamorros were not cognizant of that. And those are the things, and you can see this picture here. This is the aftermath. But in all of that, you know, with the Chamorro value system, these are the things that really come to my mind. And this is coming from them. And it really is guiding me even today. Iginavli'i sumalatatsmi mo na iyan. That govli'i comes from two words. It's a compound word, gov, actually, because gov is an intensifier. Gov meaning very, li is to see. Is to see beyond what your eyes can see. Because if you're only seeing what you're seeing now, it might blind you and not move you forward. The other one, again, is inasi, only forgiveness. Sinya sumauso ilagogera, only forgiveness can wipe away the tears of war. All our scientists know this. No other way can the minasapit, the sufferings of World War II, can be wiped away if there is no inasi, because they would carry on that negative experience. And it is. But they went forward beyond that. So these two words, inasi and ginafli'i, are deep-rooted cultural truly concepts in how we Chamorros, and hopefully the descendants, can learn from this, and how we can daily deal with situations, especially with what we're facing today. Because sometimes we are very blinded, really. We don't want to accept the fact, but it's here, and we are now seeing it as a reality in our present situation with the pandemic of coronavirus. And for Liberation Day, going back again to that concept, where do we go forward from today, 1976 after the war, to the future? There was always a liberation in my growing up in Guam, since I could remember as early as 5 years old. And this is now more of the, it's a very simple experience, but I would tell you. So in the early days of the parade of Liberation Day, the World War II experience was very graphic. Marches on the float, marches to the concentration camp, the beheading of Father Duenas. It's not the floats you see today that are very aesthetic, flowery, and all that. No, not the floats I remember back in the 50s. They were very graphic of the atrocities of the war. But there was one thing that I have to say, and because we went to the parade every day, my mother and father, that was a must. And we all learned about World War II from them. About 2 weeks when all the family, kusinan and sanhiyong families gathered. That's what we did as a family. And one song that really always comes to my mind, and I know maybe it seems like, well, but due to the tomorrows, it's like a dear heart song, but that's the Uncle Sam song. But really, I could never forget the early days of the parade, and even today. And from the distance to the end of the parade, or today in the beginning, I would hear the Marine band play from the Host of Montezuma. Now, that's one thing. But is it just the Host of Montezuma? No, that's not the way I was interpreting. I was interpreting that sound, and I would go like this to Mom, or to my mother, Sinanaw, like, Mom, I'm mapati-sindog na Amerikano, because that's the way I was interpreting as a young child, right? That the American soldiers were coming back to Guam. And my mother would simply say, ay patgon magahe. Man matutati. They came back. And I think maybe that's how they were defining their liberation. That they came back to the normalcy, or some normalcy to their own life. Sandong kaluna si Zeus Moss.
Just Masi Malia for sharing with us your part of your journey. I think you reinforced for us something that sticks out to me is the importance of our first kind of window into the past, and that's not in a library, it's not in a textbook. It's from your family, first with your close family, and then the extended family, and this network of Meñaina that you're talking about. And it's through the beliefs and the traditions that we build upon the experience of, like you said, of those who have come on before us or who have gone on before us. I think that reinforces the sacred importance of Meñaina as our first historians, as our most authoritative historians. But I think also what you point out is the absolute centrality of youth as not only recipients of that history, right? People that are receiving it like you did, but who then become stewards of that history to help perpetuate it. So thank you for showing that, reminding us of that in the concept of connecting. It segues very nicely into our next guest at the back kitchen table. Somebody I've had the honor of working with for many years, who reinforces the reality that it does take a village to preserve and to perpetuate our past, and that it not only takes a village to do that, we need to also understand the important role of youth, the important role that youth play in occupying an essential place of prominence. So with that, I'm excited to turn it over to our next guest, Mr. Joe Castro, who's going to tell us about a lot of the work he's been doing to connect and to preserve. Joe, welcome.